Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of PowerCore Productions and Podcastings. And in today's video, we are going to be continuing My Hero Academia, Vows of Vengeance. What if Deku was a monster? Part 3. As always, if you're new to the channel or if you're a regular and you like what we have to offer, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcasting that has come out now and in the future. As we go into part 3, we continue to follow Claire and Izuku's journey as they begin their roles as heroes in UA. However, hero work isn't really on their mind, their main focus still remaining the same: to help find the lost coins for their extraterrestrial friend, and to uncover the secrets of their past, to see what truly lies under the surface. Will they get vengeance upon those that have wronged them? And even if their vengeance is close at hand, is taking it going to be as easy as they hope it'll be? For all this and more, stay tuned as we now continue My Hero Academia, Vows of Vengeance. What if Deku was a monster? Part 3. As always, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Izuku and Claire walked side by side as they made their way to UA High School. It had taken time, but now they had finally begun their journey. Of course, in the grand scheme of things, UA was nothing more but a means to an end. In hero society, using your power freely and without cause wasn't really something that you could do. It was a luxury only afforded to heroes primarily. Granted, the two didn't have to go down this road. If they were going to continue in their rather vigilante way, then maybe the best thing to do would have been is to go to a local school. However, going to UA is what gave you connections, access to certain things that the general public just wasn't going to be able to get their hands on. This was something that both Izuku and Claire clearly realized. It wasn't just a matter of them getting their vengeance, no. It was also a matter of their mission: to find the last few remaining coins, get them to Alien, and then get him off of this planet. The longer the coins stayed out there, the more dangerous they were going to be. Izuku could still remember his anger just a couple of months ago, the last time they had spoken to Alien. You see, the coins and the finders, it was a rather impartial game, so to speak. Anyone that found the coin and brought it to Alien would get a wish, regardless as to who they were or what their motives were. This angered Izuku in that moment. The idea that someone, some nutjob, could just gain whatever type of power they wanted and that Alien would give it to them without reserve, it just didn't make any sense. Do you understand what you're doing? Izuku, calm down. How am I supposed to calm down? You're just willing to give power to anyone that asks for it. All they have to do is find a precious coin and whoop, you'll turn anyone into a monster, won't you? It's not that simple, Izuku. I'm not from this world. So what's the point? It's completely... Do you understand how dangerous this could be? Izuku, I do. But the thing is, I'm not human. This world, its problems, I hate to sound callous in speech, but truthfully, I have no bearing on what happens in this world, for better or for worse. And in the end of the day, the evil that comes from humanity, well, it comes from you all. After all, I don't go and force you to become villains. All I do is merely supply you the power. What you do with it is up to you. If you mean to tell me that all humans are so untrustworthy that no power should ever be bestowed upon any of them, then why did you take the power? Izuku found it hard to answer that question. Of course, Izuku said he'd do the right thing, to be a hero at least, but the alien shook his head. We both know that's not the real reason you want this power. You want it to avenge your father, and she wants it to avenge her family. That's not really what a hero is supposed to do, am I right? But do I judge you? Do I deny you what you want? No. I have complied with anything you've asked of me. When you gave me that coin, you could have easily reversed what your father had done. You could have become a regular human, or you could continue on in your dream of becoming a hero. And yet, you've never mentioned that to me once before now. Every time, it's always the same thing. Your vengeance, what you're after. And I am not one to judge. I cannot. In the end, regardless of whether or not you are human or of some other species, we all feel the same emotions. They are no different. And yet now, you choose to try to stand on some form of morality. But let me ask you, when you finally accomplish what you've wanted to, what will be left? That was something that Izuku found hard to answer. It was something he never wanted to dwell on, but truthfully, was he doing the right thing? Was this what his father would want for him? Izuku chose to ignore these thoughts. After all, it wasn't like it really mattered now at this point. They had already gotten as far as they had. There was no point in stopping now, and even still, they had to find those 12 remaining coins to make sure that no one else got their hands on them. The collectors, whoever they were or wherever they were hiding, they were obviously up to something, but what it could possibly be, they had no idea. As they entered into UA, they would find their classroom, Class 1A. The students were all lively and colorful in a way, each one having their own unique quirk, not just in terms of power, but also personality. Of course, it didn't take Izuku long to see Bakugo butting heads with one of the students, and it being none other than the boy with glasses. I think his name was Tinya Ida or something like that. Bakugo was being chastised for having his feet on the desk, although there would be a brief silence as both Claire and Izuku walked in the room. Everyone had seen how they performed during the entrance exam. They definitely had some skill. Of course, Ida was also impressed by them, as he immediately walked over and introduced himself again, and more properly. Claire was more than happy to be outgoing and to try to speak to everyone, although Izuku, on the other hand, he didn't really care to make that many friends. Bakugo eyeing him up and down. However, the one who really stole the attention in the room was a boy with white and red hair. The boy known as Shoto Todoroki. Everyone remembered seeing that massive wall of ice that he created to destroy the zero-pointer robot. A bubbly girl would walk behind them, Uraraka. She said hi to everyone and she thanked Todoroki again for the rescue. Although Todoroki simply mumbled he was just repaying a debt, that was all. Everyone was gathered at the doorway speaking when suddenly a large man wrapped inside of a sleep sack would appear. His eyes looked expressionless and tired as he grabbed the juice box to try to clear his throat before speaking. Alright, all of you to your desk now. The tired man with shaggy hair would step out of his sleeping bag as he rubbed his eyes before taking a look at the attendance sheet and addressing the students. I'm going to be your teacher. I'm Mr. Aizawa, and as you can see, I want all of you to go to the back of the class to grab your gym uniforms and meet me out front. You have 5 to 10 minutes. Now hop to it. Wait, we're doing physical stuff already? Uraka would say. But what about the school assembly? What about orientation? Everyone else is, going to that. Did you come here to be heroes, or did you come here to have some sweet high school memories? Orientation and all that jazz is nothing more but a waste of time. We don't come here just for luxury. We come here to be heroes. And it's time you all take that seriously. Everyone would get dressed as they made their way outside. As they all stood in attendance, Mr. Aizawa would look through a charting sheet before turning his attention to Izuku. Izuku Midoriya, step forward. Yes, sir. You scored the highest in the entrance exam. Although I have to say, there were a few of you that did pretty impressive. Even for those who weren't even officially taking the test, Mr. Aizawa said as he shot an eye towards Todoroki. But you got the highest, so I want you to go first with the demonstration. Stand over there in the circle and take this. Mr. Aizawa tossed him a throwing ball. I want you to stand in the circle and throw that ball as far in the air as you can. I know that you probably had a test like this back in middle school, but you weren't allowed to use your quirks, right? No, sir, we weren't. I figured as much. I'll never be able to gauge your true power. Up until now, you all have been living by the rules of society. To not use your powers in public and to always keep yourself in check. Well, here things are going to be different. Here we want to see you test your limits, to break them even. And you can't do that by holding back. So I want you to give it your all. Use your quirk, do whatever you gotta do to get that ball as far in the air as you can. Izuku would nod as he took a deep breath. Holding the ball in his right hand, his arm would begin to transform into that of a monster arm. He waited as Mr. Aizawa would give him the go-ahead, before cocking his arm back as far as he could, and delivering a rather impressive throw. The ball looked like it was going to go a far enough distance. That was until Izuku took a deep breath, holding it for as long as he could, before shooting out a massive fireball that went heading directly towards where the other ball had been thrown. The impact of the two colliding would cause the ball to skyrocket even further, shooting farther until it reached a distance of around 960-ish meters. Everyone was stunned. How was he able to use 2 different powers like that? Or maybe it's all one power? Even Mr. Aizawa had questions, as Izuku explained that his quirk was a bit complicated than most, although for easier explanation, they were one and the same. You could say that was just partially of what he could do. All the same, Mr. Aizawa would be impressed, and he would allow everyone else to continue with the ball throw, along with other various tests to see what they were capable of. Whenever Claire was going to compete, she would have around her waist a set of talismans. Mr. Aizawa asked just what she was up to using those charms, since this wasn't a temple or anywhere for you to pray. Claire would explain that her quirk was basically the ability to manifest words that were written, or as she called it, manifest. One thing in particular that she was able to manifest were the words written down on talismans. As such, these were the most effective for her to use her quirk-like ability. She would demonstrate during the ball throw, as she took a talisman and wrote down the word explosion. Immediately, she would take a second talisman and write down the word armor. She placed the armor talisman over her body, Immediately, the talisman would disappear. Claire would explain that her body was temporarily armored, and that the effects of her talismans had a limit of up to 5, so her armor would last up to 5 minutes. Using it to protect herself, she would take the explosive talisman and wrap it around the ball. As it disappeared, Claire would launch it immediately, as a large explosion would shoot off the ball, causing it to fly higher into the air and giving her a decent score. Mr. Aizawa was impressed. Her ability to use these talismans. If it had a little more practice, then maybe the time limit could go higher. He asked her what was the most that she could use. She said she could use up to 5 talisman at once, but that was her max, and that each talisman, depending on what it was being used for, could have a potential power limit of up to 5 minutes. If these were her limits so far, then it was only a matter of time before they could go higher. Slowly but surely, the class continued on, each student showing what they were capable of doing, until finally they had come to the end and Mr. Aizawa had gotten his results. If you're wondering about the number of students that are in the class, it's still 20. One of them had to be bumped off, and it was Mineta. He found himself being the odd man out, but he still found a place for himself in Class 1B apparently, where his antics were still renowned. All the same, as the test had finally come to an end, Mr. Aizawa would remark that each student had different capabilities, and it was merely a matter of seeing what they could do and pushing those limits to the next level. But all the same, he looked forward to seeing just how far they could go. And even more so, he wanted to see just how they grow in their efforts to be heroes. As the school day eventually came to an end, both Izuku and Claire would begin their walk back home, when Uraraka and Ida would approach, asking to walk with them to the train station. The four would have a lively conversation, talking about their abilities, a bit about their past, and just their overall thoughts about their school in general. Uraraka had tried to invite Todoroki to walk with him, but he declined, deciding to keep to himself as he went home a different way. Of course, while Claire and Izuku were cordial, they eventually had to cut their ties as they had their focus on other things. As they went home, Izuku explained that he had been working on something. With help from Alien, he was working on a device that could potentially allow them to find the coins a lot more easier. Of course, Claire was excited about this, as she didn't think that it could even be possible. But Izuku got the idea while they were walking on Dagobah Beach, and he found a broken metal detector. He believed that if they could work some things around, they could build a detector that could only work on the coins. If they had something like that, then they'd be capable of finding them at least with some measure of ease compared to just searching wherever and whenever. But of course, Izuku didn't have all the tech that he needed. After all, he was just working with some makeshift junk. If they were really going to work on anything, they'd have to work with the UA's tech department. You mean the support course? Yeah. You seen the type of funding they have? I think if we can get some help in that regard, then this tracker could definitely work a lot better. And you think finding the coins would be a lot easier? It'd have to be. Depending on how far I can make the radius and how strong I can make the signal. But if we can get the radar up and running, then I'm sure we can find them all in no time. Izuku, what do you want to do when we find all of the coins? It's simple. We return them all to Alien, Alien leaves this planet, and from there, all we have to do is hunt down the collectors. But you don't want to use them? I haven't really thought about it, but why? I mean, I don't want to be greedy or anything. After all, I'm grateful for the power we have now. But we could still do so much. We could do so much more, and I just thought that maybe... I don't think that's for the best, Claire. I mean, don't get me wrong, the idea's crossed my mind a couple of times. But where would it stop? I mean, how much can you really augment your own body till eventually you're not the same person anymore? I mean, how much power does one person really need? Claire had to even stop and think about this herself. Izuku did have a point. It was greedy to think that they could just keep asking for power over and over again. They were starting to sound like the very people they wanted to stop. It was so tempting though. A quick and easy way to gain power. One that they had already abused to some degree. Of course, they could probably ask for other things. Maybe he could make them a whole lot of money and they could be rich. I mean, that was always a potential option. Izuku wanted to curb this idea, but even still, it hadn't fully left his mind though. There were so many things they could potentially get, and there was just no telling to the endless amount of power that it could possess. But still, they had to hold some level of restraint. Their job was merely to find the coins and turn them in. That's what they had to be focused on. As the school year would continue, the students would be in for another surprise, as All Might would be announced to be one of the new teachers and staff of UA. He would arrive to Class 1A, as they were going to be going into their hero course for the evening, and this was going to consist of battle training. Of course, it wasn't just enough to get into the battle spirit, but you had to dress the part too. As the wall in the back of the classroom would open, it would reveal the suitcase where all of the students' hero costumes would be waiting for them. They had sent in specifics as to what they wanted their designs to be, including Claire and Izuku's, and it was time for them to suit up and prepare for battle. Izuku's hero costume would be much different than how you know it to be in the original story. Izuku and Claire both agreed that they wanted their hero costumes not to stand out too much. After all, they didn't want people to necessarily see them coming, and it was reflected in their designs. Their heroes' costumes were made of a special type of fiber material, one that was pretty good against bullets and against standard blades and knives. This didn't mean that they were made completely bulletproof, but against a standard handgun or a standard blade or something of that works, it would give them relatively good protection. Izuku's was a black suit, simple in design, but well formed and fitting. On top of that, he also wore a specially made pair of black Converse, along with a specially made black Oni mask. He wasn't sure why, but he felt like this look suited him best, at least for his line of work. He was also working on getting a license to use a gun. He already had one whenever he transformed into his monster state, so he figured why not continue with the motif. At the very least, he could use a gun that could have special bullets with different properties. Or he could potentially use his fire-breathing quirk to maybe manifest alongside with his gun. Maybe he could shoot out firing bullets. At least that was the idea he had for his design. As for Claire, she took a much different approach. Her hero costume was an update of the regular Shrine Maiden design, one that she thought was more cuter and more fitting to her style. Along with that, she wore a specially made fox yokai mask, along with a holster on both sides of her waist that carried 25 talisman each, for a grand total of 50. She could only use 5 at a time anyway, so she figured she wouldn't burn through them all, but she could always potentially add to the holsters to hold on to more talisman if need be. along with a specially made pair of red Converse. You could say that Izuku and Claire's designs were more of a reflection of their overall power and to their state of mind. They were still heroes in a sense, but they weren't your traditional heroes. Both Claire and Izuku would join the other students as All Might overwent the parameters of the battle exam. Using the makeshift city that they had for training purposes, the students would be divided up into pairs of two. 2 students would play the role of the heroes and 2 would play the role of the villains. The goal of the exam were to play a game of maybe defense and offense. The role of the heroes was to go through the makeshift city, to find a stand-in for a powerful weapon that was being used, and to capture it. The way the hero team won was by capturing the weapon or by capturing both of the villains. And for the villain team, they were to either capture the heroes or defend their weapon until the timer ran out. Of course, they were going to be doing so by casting lots, so it was supposed to be random. However, Claire, being the rather crafty fox that she was, not just in terms of her mask, would make sure that the odds would fall in her favor. Of course, Izuku wasn't surprised to see that they were paired together, as he figured she would have done something. "Did you really have to cheat, Claire?" Izuku would ask. "Now just what would give you that impression, my dearest Oni?" "Don't play dumb with me. I already know you would have been capable of doing something like this. Even still, don't you think it would have been better if we had tried to work with the others?" "Why? We already work well enough together. No need to get anyone involved with just the 2 of us." Under his mask, Izuku rolled his eyes. He saw that they were going to be paired together, although what role they were going to be playing, they weren't sure. Until finally their turn came, and they'd be playing the role of the villains. There was something a little unsettling about that turn of event, but he quickly watched over it, as the 2 of them would go into their building and make sure that they had everything secure, while the hero team standing outside waited for their mark. The hero team of Bakugo and Ida. Ida was trying to go over a strategy. From what he had seen of Izuku and Claire, they had some pretty special powers and abilities, and that they would need to work together as a team if they were going to have a chance at winning. However, Bakugo didn't really feel like it. He only had one thing on his mind. He wanted to see what Izuku was really all about. A chance to finally go all out and test his limits? This was something he had been waiting for. Izuku sighed as he kind of figured Bakugo was going to be coming directly for him. He asked Claire if she'd be alright and if she could hold down the room. Claire nodded in agreement. The timer would start as the countdown to 10 minutes would begin. Before Ida had a chance to go over anything with Bakugo, Bakugo went storming through the building, blasting his way from corridor to corridor, moving up stairwells and various other rooms to try to find Izuku. Izuku casually took his time, making his way down. He already knew where Bakugo was, his senses could find them easily. As such, when the 2 of them finally met in the middle floors, everything fell to a standstill. Izuku with both of his hands in his pocket as he walked forward, and Bakugo standing from across the hall. "Deku!" "Ka-chan?" Nowhere to run this time." "I agree. We can finally settle this." "Don't talk all high and mighty. You think just because you finally got your little quirk it makes a difference. I don't care what you turn into. You can turn into a monster. You can turn into a horrifying demon. In the end, you're still second best. You're second rate and you're second class." "Is that so? Well, if you're so much better than me, why don't you come and prove it?" Bakugo went flying down the hall towards Izuku. However, Izuku had already read his movements, quickly grabbing his arm as he slammed him onto the ground. Everyone watching in the monitor room would be ecstatic at the exchange. However, Izuku wasn't just done there, as he picked up Bakugo once again, holding him by the waist as he slammed him directly into the floor, crashing down as the two went falling to the lower decks of the building. Bakugo would groan in pain as he tried to get back onto his feet. He figured Izuku might be strong, but he didn't think he'd be that damn strong. Izuku showed no expression from his mask, and that only pissed off Bakugo more. I can feel you've got a shit-eating grin under that mask. You want to hide it from me, don't you? You think way too much, Kachan. You should stay focused. Otherwise, this fight's gonna end rather quickly. That's what you think. Bakugo held both his hands together as he yelled, "Stun grenade!" Immediately, multiple sparks would fly out, blinding Izuku for a moment. However, Izuku hadn't lost where Bakugo was. Even if he couldn't use his eyes, his sense of smell hadn't left him. Bakugo came flying through the smoke. However, Izuku would deliver a roundhouse kick to his side, kicking him through a side wall as he pulled him out before delivering a devastating punch to his gut and knocking him back down to the ground again. In the meanwhile, Ida made his way to the upper floors at top speed before finding Claire. Claire is sitting in the middle of the room in front of the bomb as she smiled. Well, hero. I thought you were going to keep me waiting. I mean, all that speed, and here you are leaving a poor girl all alone. You can't dissuade me, villain. I already know what you're up to with your nefarious schemes, and I'm here to tell you that it ends today. For I am the hero and genius. As he tried to run, he found himself falling onto the ground. He tried to get up again, although he only slipped once more. Claire simply smiled. Having a tough time standing? Well, I've charmed the floor with a spell of mine. You like it? It's called Slip. It makes the floor a slippery surface and you can't gain any traction. What? You can try all you want, you're just gonna keep falling on your face. And I can take a load off. Claire simply sat back and watched as Ida tried desperately to get up over and over again. In the meantime, Izuku and Bakugo's battle was starting to take a turn. Izuku had transformed both his arms into monster arms, blocking against Bakugo's explosions that were starting to rain heavier and heavier. Those grenade gauntlets that he had on his wrist definitely packed a punch, and Izuku felt it once or twice as they slammed into his back. However, Izuku had gotten in some clean shots of his own as the two of them continued going at it over and over again. While Bakugo was definitely commendable to have lasted as long as he did, Izuku showed that he clearly had the edge. Bakugo staggered to his feet, as Izuku warned him that if they continued on like this, it wasn't going to end well. Shut it! You think you're so big and bad, don't you? Well, I'll have you know, I've got some tricks of my own. Bakugo held both of his grenade gauntlets up. I'm sure you're aware that my quirk, Explosion, it comes from the nitroglycerin sweat that comes out of my pores and immediately spark into explosions the moment they make contact with the open air. Well, both of these gauntlets, they store up a lot of that residual sweat, and I can fire off 2 good shots. All Might heard this through the monitor and admonished Bakugo not to go for it. Even Izuku was a bit worried. You scared now? Transform into a monster if you want to. But in the end, you're just gonna make a bigger target for me to hit. Bakugo, stop this immediately. If you launch an explosion like that through the building, the whole thing might come down. I don't really care anymore. I'm gonna blast this furball straight to hell! So why don't you have it? Take all of my power, if you can, you damn nerd! Kacchan, stop! You're gonna kill all of us if you do this! If you got a way to stop me, you better do it now, because I ain't holding back! Kacchan, stop! Now die! Bakugo would let off the massive explosion. It would shake and rock the whole building. Even Claire and Ida could feel it, as the floor around them felt like it was starting to crumble. The whole building felt like it was going to collapse. Izuku had no chance. The only choice he had now, he transformed into his full monster state. He rushed forward towards Bakugo's explosion, wrapping himself within the attack. There was a loud boom and a thud. The whole foundation began to shake. There was smoke and debris everywhere. All Might feared for the worst. If the whole building came down, they could all die. All Might immediately raced out, running at top speeds to the building itself. He rushed in to try to find where the other students were. The first floor had already seemingly caved in. However, he could still see up in the distance Ida and Claire holding on to the ledge. He rushed up and grabbed them both, taking them out immediately. As he did so, the whole building started to come down. All Might rushed in as he pushed away as much of the falling debris as he could, hoping that it wouldn't lead to a complete avalanche. Thankfully, even with the building coming down, All Might's massive overall strength was able to push away much of the falling debris, at least enough to the point where it wasn't too bad, although the first 3 floors, they had fallen in, and Izuku and Bakugo were underneath. All Might would push through the debris, using all of his strength as he tried to reach and pull them out. The only thing he could find was Bakugo's grenade launcher, and not the boy. Claire had a distinct worried look on her face. The other students weren't sure of what was going to happen either. However, as All Might continued to pull out, there would be a massive rumbling underneath. Multiple slabs of stone and fallen rhubarb would all be pushed away, as a bulking, monstrous, mascot-like figure would appear. As it stood, it looked completely unharmed, save for the fact that there was a hole in its chest, a hole that shot out the other end. But inside of the monster's arms was a passed out, battered and beaten Katsuki Bakugo. All Might grabbed hold of Baku immediately and called for a recovery girl and for those in the medical staff to arrive quickly. As he took him off to the side, he turned back to Izuku. Seeing him in his monster form, he also saw the gaping hole. Oh no! Midoriya! Are you alright? What's wrong? I'm fine. All Might. Look. Izuku turned and showed the zipper. Pull it down. You need to see. As he did so, All Might could see the shocking discovery. There was no one inside of the suit, but yet it was standing. It freaked him out. Just what are you? Izuku turned, his large head looking at his hero. I'm a monster. This concludes My Hero Academia Vows of Vengeance. What if Deku was a monster? Part 3. As always, if you enjoyed today's video and everything else that we have to offer, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcastings that has to come out now and in the future. Stay tuned for tomorrow's video as we start a brand new series in ReZero Avatar Lost. What if Aang was in ReZero? Season 1, Part 1. But anyway, that's going to do it for the end of today's video. I'm Javon Harrington with PowerCore Productions and Podcastings, signing off, and I'll see you next time.